What is going on, you guys? Vikram Prashar here, and this is another episode of the DropKick Podcast. Much like our conversation with the wrestling classic Justin Dillon, we have decided to split up our interview with Diana Hart Smith into two parts because it was an amazing, long, and in-depth conversation. And when we started rolling, we thought, it's so damn good, we didn't want to stop. So this is part one. Part two will be out later this week. So make sure you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. And stay tuned for part two.
Before we start this interview, I want to quickly mention that Wrestle Merch Central has partnered up with Georgia Smith to bring you British Bulldog merch. They have cups, hoodies, t-shirts, and more. Please make sure to go check out www.wrestlemerchcentral.com.
Also, while you're at it, check out the new website of the British Bulldog himself. Harry Smith and Georgia Smith have come up with a website that talks about British Bulldog's workout schedule, his diet, and much more.
You can also follow the British Bulldog's official page on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
On Instagram, it's at the British Bulldog Davy Boy Smith.
On Twitter, it's _Davy Boy Smith.
And lastly, on Facebook, the British Bulldog. Go help support this legend's legacy.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the DropKick Podcast. I'm Daniel. This is Vikram. And today we have a very special guest. She's an author.
She's a wrestling personality.
She's a member of the Hart family.
And she is the wife of the late, great British Bulldog and part of the Hart family. Please welcome Diana Hart Smith. How are you doing today,
Diana?
I'm well. I'm really well. Thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So how has the whole quarantine thing been for you?
Oh, gosh. It's been... I kind of feel like I'm under house arrest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm lucky that I haven't gotten sick. And no one I know has gotten sick. So that's...
It's hard, yeah, absolutely.
But it's just, no work and not really. I am struggling with it though. The Hall of Fame was something I was looking forward to so much because Davey was going to be inducted, and
absolutely,
it's like he's graduated, but he hasn't walked across the stage,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like it was taken away from him, but the event was going to happen in Tampa just preceding WrestleMania, and it would have been just it would have been an incredible.
It would have been amazing, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We lived. I used to live in Tampa, and my kids still live there, and it is a second home. For me, I guess it's their home now, but we could have had it would have been just a wonderful time, but it didn't happen, and worse.
But hey, I think we're gonna get it eventually, and I think when this whole thing ends, I think it'll happen for sure, and it'll be great. Like I can't wait to see that happen. Especially a big fan of the British Bulldog, Vikram and I. But
yeah,
it's gonna be a great day. Absolutely.
And yeah, like how you said you're struggling with it. That's very brave to come out about, because I feel like a lot of us are all struggling with it. Like it's tough to be in our houses for like this long, like with not much to do, things we're all looking forward to. Like it's tough, but I think as long as we all stick together, we all try our best to have a positive mindset, I think we can power through for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I the uncertainty of it is hard for me to
just take in, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's when I know, like, oh well, whatever, your probation period is going to be over at this time, or you just have to wait, 3 months before you get the cast off, or you need to do. Stick to these things, and at the end of, 6 months of a diet or whatever, but there's no certainty here. Like, I don't know when this is going to end.
Absolutely.
Nobody does. So it's hard to make definitive plans. I don't know when I'll see my kids. It's luckily for things like Skype,
Yeah.
But I think the idea of it, well, not the idea, the fact that it is out of my control. Like, maybe I hadn't seen my kids in a few months, but it was because I was waiting for the Hall of Fame, or I was waiting for summer or something. Now it's like I'm just waiting for something.
Just waiting to end. Yeah.
Yeah, and nobody knows. So the uncertainty of it is, it's hard.
It's hard to just
how to deal with. But it's so much out of my control. But I guess things that are in my control are just trying to keep healthy. So I don't get sick. I mean, that's a big thing. I can. Anyway, it's just.
Oh, you got a cat?
Yes, this is Rocky.
Oh wow.
Rocky's a feral cat from Tampa.
Oh wow.
Aww.
I think
He's
TJ.
my boy.
Yeah, TJ also has a cat.
Yeah.
Natty and TJ.
Yep.
They have a bunch of
Yeah.
cats.
Natty loves cats.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all big. I think if you're not a cat lover and as well an animal lover,
Who doesn't love cats, right?
I know. I adore them. I am not their equal. They're on a higher level than I am. They don't get stressed out over things and they do know. Someone might challenge me on that and say they don't know, but they know more than.
Of course, they're special creatures. But speaking of the Hart family a little bit, what were your favorite memories growing up?
Geez, it was a great upbringing. It was like Ichigo Park. There's this old song called Ichigo Park. I don't remember who sings it now, but just about animals and the free feeling, like freedom. And we grew up on a farm like setting. It's beautiful. It was so unique, though. I mean,
for sure, yeah.
We had this
it was a different time.
That my dad had a vision of. I mean, it was a very elaborate home to start with, but then when my dad got it in 1952, he started to fix it up and put leaded glass in the window. Get leaded glass from Montreal that he saw somewhere. He liked to recycle things, like of
course.
If he saw it in an old building that was getting refinished or torn down,
right.
Get as much stuff as he could, because he would see the beauty and purpose in it to put it in his own house that he loved. It was like an extension of the family. We had the farm animals that we had 2 milking cows and some chickens and a rooster and some goats and a really nice vegetable, huge vegetable, huge. And then
I mean, when you have a big family like that, I mean, you can expect things like that. So that's always really cool to hear stories about.
Yeah, we were ahead of our time, even though we were maybe considered weird. But people, if they could grow their own vegetables now or have a milking cow in their yard, strictly milking, that was why we had goats. My sister Ellie was lactose intolerant, which no one had heard of back in the mid-50s, and she was the first girl after 5 boys. So my dad was quite concerned that his little baby girl kept getting sick after she started drinking milk. So someone said, why don't you get a couple of goats and try the goat's milk because it's a different kind of milk, and that worked. So we had this really, really neat. We could enjoy animals, and there were wild animals that came through the yard: deer, and porcupines, and coyotes, and moose. And we had the wrestlers, which was a really always characters, you know. And they're
who would show up though sometimes.
What's that?
Who would show up though, like on the farm or whatever?
Andre the Giant.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
He'd come up to Calgary a few times a year, and I remember him coming to the house. He was waiting for my dad, and Owen and I that was when we first met him. He was sitting in the living room. He was scary. Like, I was really scared of him. It's like seeing Prashar on horse or like he was giant. He was huge. He was
and
huge. I was pretty little. I don't know, maybe 8.
Oh wow.
He took his ring off and he let Owen and me play with it, and I'd get it over my hand, right over my wrist.
That's
I guess I didn't, like a child's hand and hit me. But I remember getting it over my hand, and then later I would see him out at my dad's beach, which we had acquired around that time. He loved going up there. And I talked to him and stuff. I wasn't so terrified of him anymore. But really was, when I saw him, I thought, because I always felt my dad was invincible and unbeatable. But when I saw Andre, and I'd hear sometimes through because the wrestling office was on the floor of the house where the bedrooms were, and I'd hear my mom talking about, a particular wrestler was causing so many problems, and I thought, what would my dad do if Andre started causing problems? Like, how? But they didn't have that kind of had any problems with Andre like that. But and we had there was Ted the wrestling bear. He was actually he was a wrestler, but
oh my God.
Bears are natural grapplers. If you have bear cubs or 2 grown-up bears fighting, you know how to headlock and lock up and take down, and so there was a wrestler named I think it was Mike Dubois. He was a legitimate mountain man, and he had adopted this orphan bear, and he would wrestle as another source of income. I don't know if he'd have his seasons where he started to make more money wrestling than what he was doing in the mountains. But he came through Calgary a few times, and it was kind of spring, summer, and the bear, whose name was Ted, he couldn't stay at a hotel, so my dad put the bear up at the house and what was funny, my mom I don't think she knew that the bear was there, but the house was so big, it's not like there are rooms in your house that you might not go in every day. Or if you don't drive or you never go anywhere, you might not go in your garage. But my dad had like 2 car garages, so they were 4 cars, but 10, but you could drive right underneath the front of the house or the back of the house, and they were attached to the house, so you go in the door and you're either in the right next to the dungeon, or you're right next to the incinerator room, which was pretty neat too, because not everybody has their own incinerator. But the bear was down there, and he would I was pretty little. I just vaguely remember the bear, but I recall my brothers and sisters talking about Ted would eat the ice cream. He'd come out from under the garage, like they'd be sitting on the porch, which was on top of the garage, and they'd have their feet dangling over the edge.
Right.
And the ice cream was hot, or it was hot out, and the ice cream's dripping. And I imagine, just because my dad always liked to give you a lot of food, it was probably dripping a lot and all over them. And anyway, the bear came out and started licking the ice cream, and they were all like,
that's intimidating, honestly. Like,
yeah,
it was. He was a really nice bear. I don't know if he had as an interesting a life at other places. I don't know. Actually, I don't know when he went to other cities to wrestle. Not for my dad, but other promotions, maybe Montreal or something. I wonder where he stayed and what he did. Yeah. I have a feeling, or I like to think that his time at my dad's house was the best.
Of course, yeah.
Kids that loved him, nobody
absolutely
or anything in my dad's family. It's kind of neat, not neat, but out of all of my brothers and sisters and their husbands, not a single hunter.
Oh wow.
But Jim Neidhart did some fishing though.
Yeah.
He was a fisherman. He liked to go fishing with Wade Boggs in and he had his own boat and stuff. He'd go catch. He caught a really big bass, wide-mouthed bass that he was proud of. But I think Jim liked to fish more for the relaxation of it.
Right, not for the actual.
Just chill.
Right.
Yeah, but so the Hall of Fame, like that's a very prestigious honor, and it's being postponed, but it will happen for sure. We had your daughter Georgia Smith on, and we asked her the same question. What was your initial reaction when you found out the British Bulldog was being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame?
Well, it was when I found out, it was really peculiar. Harry was the one who was told first, and I don't know how that came about. I gather it was WWE, and maybe Natty knew something of it, or told Harry he needed to be home at a certain time, or make sure his phone was near him when he got the call, because it was. I don't know if Natty kept it a surprise. I'm not sure, but Harry got the news first, and he didn't tell us till later that day when I got home from work, and Georgia was home, I guess, from work too. And he started the conversation off in a really, and he told me something that I was kind of, I won't go into what he told me, but I was kind of happy about what he was saying, but I wasn't. It was like, oh, this was the big news. It's kind of like somebody saying they can't wait to tell you the big news, and then you get home and you're waiting, and the big news is that they're gonna get their tooth filled or something. Like I don't know. It was more than that though, but it was something that. So I was acting like I was happy because I should have. I mean, it was. It wasn't quite like news like Harry was going to quit wrestling and become an architect, but it was something like that. Like I remember just thinking, oh, okay. And this was before COVID or anything, so but that wasn't. I can't say what the news was because it makes it. It is
whatever you're comfortable with, of course.
almost like he was going to get married to somebody that you didn't even know.
You were just, kind of, right, kind of let down.
And I was just like, oh, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, Harry,
And he said, yeah, I think it's going to be good. And then I was just like, oh, okay. So he said, okay, so pour your glass. We got to toast to this. And I had my boyfriend, Tom Fortani, who's a former CFL wide receiver, and they retired his number. He's that good. So he was there listening, and and he doesn't drink, so I got him a Sprite, and I've got, all I had was red wine. It's like, I don't have champagne, and so we pour the glasses, and Georgia's getting her glass, and then Harry goes, okay, so we'll raise a toast, and then he blurts out the news. Davey's getting inducted in the Hall of Fame this year. I was like, oh my God, but I was still kind of like,
you're kind of unsure, right?
Yeah, it was like if I had been there with Harry, I would have given him a shake. Like, how come you told it to me like that? But Harry was, that was his way of presenting this big news, and I could tell he was extremely happy about it. George was ecstatic. So then Harry proceeded to say, it's I will be there, but I have to go to Japan the next day. And I was like, oh, well, that's a disappointment, because it would have been nice if we'd been there for the whole WrestleMania event from
the celebration, right?
Yeah, from Fan Fest to the Hall of Fame to the to everything.
For sure. But speaking of British Bulldog a little bit, in 1992, you were at that year's SummerSlam in the crowd. What was the atmosphere like? How did it feel to see your brother and your husband go at it and put on an all-time classic?
Oh gosh, it was a real culmination of intense feelings. I was totally stressed out, because I knew they were going to work their hardest to make it.
Absolutely.
So I was expecting one of them or both of them would come out with maybe some injuries. That's legitimate, because I've seen Brett and Davey when they put their they've been hurt lots of times, or they blow their knee out, or I was overwhelmed. I was stressed out. I was fascinated. I was captivated.
Absolutely.
I was a nervous wreck. Davey had a staph infection that was quite serious. It was a flesh-eating disease in his left knee, man. And that was it was like, I don't know, about 6 weeks before this happened, and they, he was told he couldn't work out or do anything, because that would stimulate where the infection was and draw blood to it, and then it would get worse. It starts to eat the flesh away. So, he was on really, really strong antibiotics. Pretty much the only thing he could do was just go very easy in the swimming pool we had, and the water was not bad. He couldn't go in anything too warm though, because it would just stimulate the virus. Yeah. And we went to England about 2 weeks before, and we were staying at his mom's and dad's house, and they were, of course, very pro Davey, and and I kind of felt like I was like, I don't know, I just felt a little like around his mom and dad at that time, like like, how is this going to be if Brett wins and we go back? Like, they're going to be
Yeah.
It's true. I know some people might think, oh, it's just wrestling, but
it was real, right?
It
felt
was.
real. It felt big. So
And
absolutely.
all those people, they sold that out in 11 hours.
Oh, wow.
That broke the record. The British Telecom system actually went down because they had so many calls, and it broke the two people that had the record for selling out the fastest for Wembley Stadium prior to SummerSlam was Madonna and Michael Jackson. They broke that record, and still they were printing merchandise on the spot at that show. They had a printing press like for T-shirts, and they were printing on the spot. So that they ran out of, but nobody really knew how to gauge it, because they hadn't done a pay-per-view outside of. I think they had done one in Canada.
Yeah.
With Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan. I think that
Toronto.
Was,
yep.
Yeah.
WrestleMania.
Yeah.
This was their very first pay-per-view without Hulk Hogan, and it was in another country, and a lot of firsts that it was done quite immaculately, considering it was sort of uncharted territory.
Right.
I was pretty happy. Though. I was proud of them both, and felt, and I really haven't been, because I was a part of that and at ringside and treated the way I was leading up to it, and I was treated as a vital part of this.
The feud, right?
Yeah, it's, to come out of it and, just, I don't know, it's like going to a really beautiful place for a holiday, and then afterwards you go to other places, but you always think of that one.
That one place, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that it can ever be. You can't ever go back to it because it
can't replicate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just can't.
But it's hard to be hard to come down. Like when you go to an office job or something, and you're having I could be having a really off day or being reprimanded for anything from my socks being too short, and you can see them under my pants. You can see the skin on my ankle. That was an actual issue I had at one workplace. Pant leg was, when I was sitting down, my pant leg was showing the ankle, and the sock wasn't covering it up. It's and then I just go back to like SummerSlam. It's like whatever you.
that big moment makes you really feel like at ease. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes you feel like, because you just live in the moment, and like the crowd, like I went back a couple of days. I watched that match, and like when Davey Boy won, it was just like that crowd exploded. It was just like it was crazy, but
it's just a moment that cannot be replicated. Like,
at all.
Yeah.
Go back
to that.
Amazing. Like going back to some safe spot in your childhood or something. When you feel like you're in despair or something. Like, but I'll go back to that, even though I was. Terrified, but I was.
Of course.
It's like I had something that, whatever I'm being. I don't know. It's kind of like my church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can always go back to that.
Itself is like my church too. It's where my family is, and particularly. WWE. I mean, I felt like that's what my dad sold Stampede Wrestling, and his territory was it became an appendage of WWF then, and then that's where my family went, and Davey went, and he did have like kind of romances off departures from WWF, he went to WCW, and he was godlike in Japan with the Dynamite Kid. And
absolutely.
But the WWE is like, I feel like that's my
best memory.
as long as it's the McMahons, and I mean, if it was someone else, but I feel a family love, family friendship.
It's home, right? Absolutely. You go back there,
definitely.
and
when I go in, there's usually somebody. Maybe not the second I walked in the arena, but there'll be somebody. I mean, I wouldn't be going there unless I was, they invited me to do something. So usually there'd be somebody expecting me, and I just go in and feel like I'm.
It's like a big warm hug.
Yeah, like
right.
And, I'm not delusional, but I feel like like Davey or Owen or Brett or. I just feel like that they're all there with me.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So, but like speaking of wrestling right now, there's WWE still on top. We have AEW giving them a bit of competition. New Japan Pro Wrestling still around. Do you keep up with wrestling here and there? Like, what do you think of the modern day product?
I know things change. Like it's part of survival. You can't just stay. We can't stay in the 80s and the 90s because that's where I felt at home. But it's. I was kind of hoping that with the coronavirus that it might have brought the wrestling just back a little bit to a little just retrain them some of the just to be a bit more old school where the where you're not the reaction of the crowd isn't as important. I mean, if you're doing something that's worthy of a crowd reaction, then it will happen. But there's so much I see everywhere that where they'll look at the crowd for nothing, like that they did some move or something and they, throwing their arms up and look. And right now there is no crowd, so. But they're so trained to do something, and then, and to me, it's like that wasn't that great. And I don't know, why are you looking at the crowd? You just get right back into the,
just focus on the match.
Yeah, yeah. So you did a knee off the top rope onto someone's neck, and then you did a forward roll out of it, and then you got to look up at the crowd like. And this is the good guys and the bad guys. Owen would do that sometimes to be aggravating when he was a villain, do something, and every few minutes he'd be like, "Woo!"
Yeah.
But there was a point there. I mean, there was Owen was successful in his. The purpose of it was to annoy the fans, but but I just see, and also without contradicting myself, but I also wish that the moves that they're doing, that the wrestlers are doing, that they would allow the fans, even if they are not there, but say watching it at home, that they would just give them a chance to react to it, because it seems like because
it's so fast paced, right?
So fast. It's like in a movie, like if you have this and 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 this, you don't have a chance.
You just lose track, right? Yeah.
And I just wish they would, because they can control things, or, and if the guy's lying there, like I remember Steve Austin and Brett wrestling each other. Brett he'd have Brett in the bottom rope, the bottom turnbuckle, and he'd just be like putting the boots to Brett.
Yeah.
And maybe only stop to switch hands to put them on the other side of the top rope.
The top rope, yeah.
But he wouldn't. There was no stalling and walking back and looking at the crowd and holding his hands up and then going back, because that makes Brett look stupid. Like, why is Brett lying there?
Right. Yeah.
You know,
like why wouldn't he get up and
get up
do
or
something?
even
Right.
crawling? But these wrestlers think that, and that what they're doing is, some of them is just so lame. It's like you wouldn't crack an egg with that. And
Just that time period.
It's like what are you? Who's teaching you, or who's telling you after your match that was good? Like I would, or I know it's just, somebody gets hit with the chair and then 2 seconds later they're up and they're doing some crazy move off the top rope.
Yeah.
And then the match is there's no logic to it.
I think there's a lack of storytelling nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've lost that gift for it.
Lost that touch, right?
Yeah, and I just it's hard to get committed to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
There are some great wrestlers out there though that I
absolutely.
I enjoy watching AJ Styles, and I like Becky Lynch, Tamina or Serona, Jimmy Snuka's daughter is pretty, and Natty. Natty was really great. Good. I would love to see Natty and Tamina. They've wrestled a few times. I would love to see them in like a 60-minute.
That'd be good, yeah.
That'd be
with
really good.
A lot of chain wrestling and really solid stuff.
Stuff, right?
I think they would tell a really good story. I like Nakamura.
Oh,
Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yes,
he's great.
Yes.
He's quite comical too.
Strong style, yeah.
He makes himself stand out for sure.
Yeah, I enjoy watching him.
He has that Michael Jackson touch to him. A lot of people say that.
I really. He's one of my favorites. It's been so long since I've seen my son Harry wrestle.
No,
I never did see any of his MLW stuff.
It's really good though, for sure.
He had a match, and it's on YouTube. Against his match was against a guy named Vordell, Vordell Walker. If you ever have a chance to see it, it was in South Carolina. That was an incredible match, and they never met each other till Harry got there late. He was flying in from Calgary, and he got there about not a lot of time to spare. And he said Vordell saw him and handed him a bottle of water, and I don't know, went to get dressed or something, and then they basically went out there without having said much more than a salutation. Hello, good, nice to meet you. I'm Harry. I'm Vordell. What a good match!
Of course, yeah.
I would love to see more matches like that. It was just a simple finish at the end. Was unpredictable, like Davies and Brett's ending at SummerSlam. It's. I'm trying to think. Oh, I love Drew.
Drew McIntyre.
Yes, he's very good.
I love Drew and Randy Orton.
Randy's so good. Yeah.
I think everybody can learn a lot from Randy Orton.
In terms of storytelling, yeah.
He learned from. He's got his own style. He's not a duplicate of his father or his grandfather, but I really think that it's in Randy's. He's a natural athlete, big guy.
Absolutely.
But he's got a great mind for wrestling and telling a story.
Absolutely.
I've seen him in a couple of movies. I can't remember what.
I think 12 rounds.
12 rounds too.
Yeah.
And that he was bald in it.
I think that was the movie. Yep.
I was impressed with his
Yeah, he can really go. Like
He's very
whatever you put the
talented.
test on him, he'll deliver no matter what. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's really got that in him. He's got that it factor.
Chris Jericho as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's always been like pretty good.
I always thought John Cena worked hard in the ring. I didn't see that. I saw one match with John Cena live. I wasn't at that many shows where I could get a seat and watch it from the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
But I happened to be in Florida, and John Cena was main event. It might have been a pay-per-view.
Do you remember who it was against, or what year? I feel like I remember.
It was the same match. This one didn't impress me, but it was with Michael Cole in the bubble wrap match against Jim Ross.
Oh, it was 2011.
I
think it was 2011.
And
2011, 2012, something like that.
Yeah, because and it was, and that night they announced that Osama bin Laden had been, or
that was over the limit.
One of the main guys had been.
That was me.
Osama bin Laden. It was one of his head guys had been captured.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay, yeah.
And that kind of. So that it was one of the main guys too. One of Osama bin Laden's right-hand men. Right. And John Cena was pretty excited about that at the end of on top of doing great. But I hadn't seeing him watch live from a pretty good seat. I really appreciated his work ethic. I'm just talking about wrestlers now that retired, but guys that are current.
Cena was always really good. I felt like I felt like it was almost similar like when he was the face of the company. Him and Brett, I know a lot of people wouldn't see this, but like with the crowd reaction, I feel like they kind of had it the same way because there was times when Brett was also getting like a negative crowd reaction.
If he was in the States, if he was in the States, he would get booed, but if he was in Canada, he would get cheered and praised like a hero because he's Canadian, and I love that because it felt real back then. It really felt like it was larger than life.
Yeah, right. It was pretty amazing. And then they had the same, like Sean would come across to Canada and he'd get
booed
out of the building. And it was such a weird dynamic.
Right? Yeah.
Those guys, they built that. Like, Brett and Sean had to have that kind of chemistry. Like the tension between the two of them was so, it was extreme. And
absolutely.
But it was a really great group of wrestlers. Like it was Sean and for a while Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. Steve Austin. He was kind of brought into it. Ken Shamrock.
Brian Pillman as well. He was really good. Man.
Yeah. I remember the Hart Foundation against the.
It was Goldust, Ken Shamrock, Road Warriors, Steve Austin, and then the whole Hart Foundation, Canadian Stampede.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was real and hard to. Oh God, all those guys, they worked so hard and they really got into their role. It's like Robert De Niro really getting into his role in something. Like you can tell that they're in the zone. And I have to give Shawn Michaels a lot of credit for some great matches that Davey had with Shawn and Brett had with Shawn. It was it does help when the guy you're wrestling is also good. Shawn is quite a perfectionist. He worked hard as well. So regardless of what their issues were outside of the ring, they worked their.
They worked hard. They worked really hard.
Yeah.
But I'm switching gears a little bit. We interviewed Tyson Kidd and Georgia Smith, and we'd always ask them, who was the funniest like Hart member? And they would always tell us it was Owen Hart with all the ribs. Do you have any Owen Hart stories to tell us?
Oh yeah, gosh. I mean, they're funny. I don't know if you find them funny, but he was so like Buster Keaton, like, you know, always doing something that, you know, take a spill down the stairs and on purpose, or just do something. And he's so improv. Like, I remember in Hawaii, this was like 1980 maybe. My best friend Allison Hall, she and I were in Hawaii and on the beach. My brothers Dean and Bruce were there, and Owen was there. And for no reason, Owen just picked Allison Hall up and body slammed her on the sand. It was just so funny. And, you know, he's careful with her, but she was like,
it was just so random.
It was just so funny, you know. And,
yeah.
and he used to put. My dad always made our lunches, and, you know, very thoughtful with his lunches. But you know, put in a big roast beef sandwich with lots of butter and mayonnaise and hot mustard and this really thick rye bread, like not thick slice, but it was a thick, like the piece of bread weighed like a pound. And you know, you could always see the oil stains coming through the paper bag, and there'd be like an apple and that. But Owen, I somehow would get into my lunch bag before I would and I was the president of the Students' Council, so I'd get my lunch, open it up, and Owen would have like a potato in there that had the eyes, the roots, you know, and and, you know, you just burst out laughing, or you put a screwdriver in there, or a rusty wrench, and Allison's bag. And, you know, you just burst out laughing, and nobody got it though in the lunchroom. It was, or at the Students' Council meeting, the assistant vice principal was very dry. She didn't see the humor in this at all. It was just, and the other, you know, people were waiting to take the minutes. You know, you know, let's get down to business. And I just laughing, but yeah, he was. Trying to think what he was. Another friend of mine named Caprice, another best friend of mine who ended up marrying a wrestler named Steve DeSalvo. She always had a huge crush on Owen from childhood, and we were neighbors. She and her family owned an Arabian horse farm, and my dad had his place. We were, I don't know, they must have had 50 acres. Anyway, when she was in grade 10, Owen was in grade 12, and she always had a huge crush on him. So she bought Owen they had a slave day to raise money for the school. So she bought Owen as her slave. Owen was so, you know, he was so non-conforming. Just, you know, she paid $100 for him too, which was a lot.
Oh wow! That's a lot. Yeah.
I don't know, 83 maybe.
Yeah, it was worth a lot of money back then.
He did, you know, she paid the money for him, and I think she ended up driving him home from, no, he drove her home from school. We were neighbors. He would have done that anyway, but she didn't get, but she got the notoriety of Owen was her slave for the day, but, you know, he was, he just, it wasn't really, that's not really that funny a story. It's just that Owen was so non-conforming. You know, he'd come down to the ring sometimes. If you ever noticed in some of his TV matches, he'd wear his hair really funny. Like sometimes he'd have it all wetted down in front, like just like straight down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he
Oh,
just
man.
he just do things that you know, if you weren't sure, you might just think Owen, you know, didn't have a clue, but Owen knew everything.
He knew everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Called him the Rocket
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. But switching gears a little bit. On our podcast we really like to tap into mental health. So if you're comfortable sharing, of course, have you ever struggled with your mental health? And for anybody who's listening that could be struggling, what advice would you give to them?
Oh yeah, that's I'm glad you asked, because yeah, I do struggle a lot with depression and anxiety. I have since about 1999, since
Wow.
it's little before it started, just a little before Owen died, but and then it just catapulted into something much like out of my control after Owen died, and just a kind of an endless series of things. But you don't have to have death, or you know, you can have what appears to be the idyllic life and suffer from depression. You could be considered the funniest person in the world, like Robin Williams, and
then tragedy.
you just
Yeah.
so a lot of people think they have to have to come forward with the fact that they are depressed. They maybe don't, because they feel they don't have the right to be. That was part of my problem for a long time. And if I ever mentioned it, I mean, we're going back over 20 years. So I know that back then, when it was brought up to, you know, friends or someone that kind of knew me, they wouldn't understand why I would be, what on earth could possibly be troubling me. Like, and that made me feel like almost like guilty, like, and that doesn't help.
Yeah.
Just over, it just
Yeah.
compounds.
Anyone could have it. You know, it's
Anyone
okay. We're all
can
human
struggle.
beings, and right. So I think we all have to just be accepting of each other and just kind of help each other. You know what I mean? Especially during this time, like the world is in a tough place, but we have to stick together. You know, we gotta have like, you know, unity and just come together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to understand that maybe the not everybody is.
Not everyone's strong. Not everyone is like solid steel, but it's okay to, you know, feel things, you know, because we're all human beings and we all go through struggles, but it's okay, you know, at the end of the day, we just have to be self-aware of it and just kind of be accepting that we have these things so we can get the help that we need, you know what I mean? And move from there. Yeah.
If you can surround yourself with good people, or
positive things also, yeah.
Even if it's just one. My animals are extremely therapeutic for me, because they. But I do take medications. I've been on different medications over my what seems like a lifetime with it, but and don't feel pissed off or what, because some people just don't get it, that if
you don't,
they just that's it's like it's and it is a disease, like diabetes is a disease, and you need to do things that are you know, help you to, you know, you know, you're supposed to, if in some cases you need to take insulin, in some cases you need to take
do what you gotta do.
Antidepressants, and you maybe shouldn't eat these things and don't get stressed out. But you know, people don't understand that with depression and anxiety. They think they don't treat it as something like diabetes. That seems to get like validation. But if you say you've got you just there have been times where I've just felt paralyzed, like I just can't
do anything. Yeah.
Can't get out of my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what. I'm not scared of. I just feel in a state of despair, and it's not like I woke up thinking, oh, I want to feel doomed today. It's just, and that can go on for a few weeks, and this COVID hasn't helped that.
Right.
But I think, I've heard a few people kind of scoffing about the depression rates have gone up because of the COVID.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, well, it's true. Like
it is, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And they just don't seem to think that that's. And it's like, well, how are you? The person that might be saying this to me I'm like, well, how are you feeling? Well, I feel lousy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, there you go. Like, but they're like, well, that's not because I'm depressed. It's because of the COVID. It's like, well, let's look at it. If you are depressed and you are sort of under a house arrest, you don't know where anything is going right now with the COVID and this pandemic it's actually controlling the whole world. It's not like even like in a war where it's like a country's involved in a war, but someone over in a city that isn't involved in the war isn't really experienced.
Right.
But this is experienced everywhere. I don't know who hasn't been affected by this, unless you're living on a deserted island. Like, I really don't know what part of the world has not been affected by this.
I think it's affected everyone. It's affected everyone in some way or some sort. Because, like you said, Georgia and Harry are in Florida, and you're in Canada, right?
Yeah.
So, it's affecting you, and you don't even have it. So it affects everyone in different, ways and stuff like that. So, 100%. But I think we'll all pull through eventually, but it'll be coming to an end soon.
Yeah. Someone's asked me, if it didn't end, and it's like I don't know, but I mean that is kind of like when you get depressed, you start to think that along those lines, like this is never going to end. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be like this, and what's the point? And then, well, anyway, it's depression is I find it it's good being around good people and having a project. It can help, or something like me talking to you guys today. Like otherwise, I don't know what I might have just. I mean, this gave me this. There was a point to this day, but
of course, this is to help other people too, because this podcast was started to it was just an idea, but then it became much more. It became something about mental health, because I like talking about it. I'm really passionate about this and pro wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's like you combine those two things, and you get this podcast, and it's a great platform for people like you to share your stories, and Georgia and TJ and many others. Everybody, right?
Yeah.
Not just professional wrestlers, but anyone really. Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah. It's a very medicinal thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
Helpful.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
But once again, if you are comfortable, do you have any idea what mental health struggles that the British Bulldog, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, or any members of the Hart family struggled with while being on the road?
I don't know what I can't really say what they may have I know Davey got very depressed after he broke his back, and then his sister died just before that of cancer.
Oh, wow.
Then he broke his back. Well, it was around the same time, and then his mom died, and then Owen died. Yeah, he was. I think he was quite dependent on painkillers, but I think that the painkillers helped numb his emotional pain, which I understand a lot better now. At that time, I mean, I was only maybe in the second, third year of my depression battles, and I didn't really understand how painkiller could help your emotional pain. I just felt painkiller is something to cover up your broken back, and get your back fixed. You need to go to therapy and get an operation or something. But I think that Davy's opiate addiction was to help him cope with absolute emotional just like,
I guess just being away on the road kind of takes a toll as well, because you're not seeing your family as much, and you're doing TV tapings too. But there was always house shows as well. So it's a tough schedule of travel.
Oh
yeah,
it's hard. It's really hard. Yeah.
They had to. I mean, I don't know how the wrestlers did it.
Yeah.
Like they had their life on the road, which is brutal schedule, and it's very competitive, and a lot of things that when you're in the ring, that might in some ways might be the easier part of it. The other stuff, the roads, the driving on the roads, and the just so much pressure.
So much. It's too much.
And then you've got to come home, and it's another life, and you just want to go, you just want to rest, and you can't because some can, but I remember Davey had a young family and me, and sometimes this mom and dad from England, and he felt like he felt like it was his sole responsibility to as soon as I get off the road, I gotta I gotta take everyone to Disney World, or I never quit, I don't stop, and he tried so hard.
He was a good man. Yeah,
he definitely
he was a really nice guy. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I don't. He had a good foundation at home. He had good kids, and I was, I loved Davey. I was infatuated with him. I adored him, and we had our spats for sure. And Davey was always so funny. He reminded me of John Cleese in Fawlty Towers sometimes when and he called me Sybil make a remark during a fight that we were having, and it was just something, and it would have been something right out of Fawlty Towers. And you can't help it. After like maybe an hour later, it's like, God, he's so funny. But
you can't stay mad at him forever.
But he had such a good sense of humor, and I think my brothers and sisters did, and I on the road they had each other, and at home we were still family. So in Calgary, it would have been Davey and Dynamite, and the network at my dad's house, and then down at BJ's gym was my sister Georgia's husband and her gym. You're always around Owen, and you're always around, so you were made, whether you realized it or not, but you were accountable for things that you were doing. and when you're around a group of people like them, you don't want to be you don't want to disappoint them or be and I don't know, it just seemed like everybody was helping everyone, and you just and then in Florida it was instead of having my dad's house and that, it was the hub we had down there with Ellie and Jim Neidhart and their kids, and we met good people through them, and we'd go to Hulk Hogan's birthday parties and hang out with the new wrestlers now, which were the WWF wrestlers. It wasn't the Stampede Wrestling group anymore, and I don't know, you just want to you just it didn't seem, it certainly wasn't in Davey's constitution to be a guy dragging his feet or complaining or acting a fool. So he always had a good head on his shoulders until, well, I don't know, I really think it was after his mom died, which was not that long before. Well, she died in February, and then Owen died in May. And
it's hard.
I think he was heartbroken after. He was pretty devastated with a lot of my nephew Matthew when he died and stuff. But his mom's death was really hard for him, and then Owen. And but at that point, Vikram, he wasn't really on the road that much. He was wrestling with WWF, they were still WWF then. And then things just seemed to get out of control, and they took him off the road, and just kind of he just went a different way for a while, and I guess that's how he. I don't know if he had it. I mean, when you mentioned other names with Brett and Owen, and I don't really know if they had depression or anything on the road. But when Davey and I were together, and he was, doing that brutal schedule, especially in the 80s, I don't recall him being depressed. It didn't happen, from what I could see, until after he left WWF and went to WCW in 1998, and then I could see he wasn't happy, and then he got hurt, and then it was a unfortunate, tragic domino effect or snowball effect. It just got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, because you had the Montreal screw job, and then that whole thing was documented on the Wrestling with Shadows.
He wanted to be loyal to the WWE.
He wanted to stay. He really wanted to stay, but things just didn't work out, and it's just kind of snowballed into this big thing, and absolutely. Yeah.